Let's grumble.
In this video, we're going to go over a conditioning game that just conditions your dog to walk with you and on your right side or your left side. Now, as I talked about in other videos, a lot of people want to teach their dog to heel. The heel is one of the least enjoyable activities for your dog to do. It is not a lot of fun, it is very structured, and is one of the most difficult things to teach. I would recommend you wait until your puppy is at least a year old before you try to teach it to heel. This exercise is a nice exercise because it's easy to do. It helps condition your dog that being near you, just like the walk with me game, is a positive thing, but this one's going to put a little bit of emphasis on walking on your right side or your left side. Also remember, when your dog is walking, it burns more energy by sniffing on walks than by walking. So as long as it's safe to do so, let your puppy sniff as much as it possibly can. You'll enjoy your walk more and you will avoid pulling your dog, which will avoid your dog learning to pull on the leash. So if you want your dog to walk on your right side, you're going to do this exercise that I'm about to show, walking around your dog in clockwise circles. If you want your dog to walk on your left side, you're going to walk in counterclockwise circles. Now, there's no right or wrong. Don't say, I have one client, they're like, well, when I'm walking Melrose, the traffic is going this way. It doesn't matter which way traffic is going, it's what your preference is. You can eventually teach your dog to walk on both sides. I just find for a puppy, it's kind of nice and comforting for them to know, when I'm going to walk, this is my position, and then this is where I'm going to be. All right, now we're going to be using a clicker for this exercise. If you haven't already learned how to prime or load the clicker, I invite you to watch that video first, because if your dog hasn't already been primed or loaded with the clicker, it's going to be a little bit confused. Now, one thing you're going to notice when I'm doing this exercise, I have no leash. As you hear Ruby drink a little water, she's getting ready for her big debut. Now, when we're using a leash, a lot of times we have a tendency to pull that leash. It also is hard for us to manage, and it creates a little bit of frustration for your dog. So I'd like you to find an environment where, just like this room, there's nothing else in here. There's no reason for the dog to not be interested in interacting with us. If you have a big basement with an open space, that's a wonderful place to do it. Doing it in your backyard is also a great place to do it. You just want to make sure the environment is not busy. So if you're doing your backyard, you don't want to have the neighbor dogs barking next door, or have kids jumping on the trampoline next door, or whatever it is. You want to start off this exercise with a nice stimulus-free environment. Eventually you want to work up to having stimulus, but it's just like a classroom. We don't have kids learn with the marching band walking down. We have a quiet environment, allows them to focus on what we want them to do. And then once they've established their behavior, then we start raising the criteria, adding distractions, making it a little bit more challenging. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be walking around this room, and I'm going to condition Ruby to walk on my right side. So I'm going to be walking in a clockwise circle. I'm just going to keep walking, and I'm not calling her, I'm not asking her to do anything, and I'm just going to wait, and I'm going to watch her. The instant she looks at me, I'm going to click, and then I'm going to hold down a treat. And this is to, the click is to tell her just looking at David is a rewardable aspect. And then look, David's got a treat for me. So this causes her to come to me. I'm going to keep doing this until she is almost walking with me, and then we'll talk about the next stage. All right, let's see how we get Ruby to walk on my right side. Now Ruby's doing good, so I'm going to start making the circle a little bit bigger. If she jumps, I might turn around. I like to keep the dog on my inside. Now Ruby's doing really good for this. A lot of dogs are not going to do that. They're just going to look at you, come to get the treat, and walk away. That's okay. And so what are we accomplishing? Ruby is walking with me, and she's being rewarded for doing so. So now, this is pretty advanced for a dog to do this quickly. Sorry about that, Ruby. But she's walking on this side of me. And now I'm clicking every time she takes one step with me. At first, the process is you're going to click for your first step with the dog walking next to you. Now, because there's not any distractions, we've been doing a lot of training. She knows I'm the giver of treats, so she's very conditioned. You can see she's like, give me more treats. That's probably not going to be the case when you're walking. So if you walk and your dog doesn't follow you, just keep walking. Don't make any sounds. When your dog looks at you, click, and keep on clicking until your dog is coming to you right over like Ruby is. All right. So that's the first stage. Once you get to the point where your dog is kind of now following you around like Ruby is, we're going to start clicking for, or asking for more criteria. We're going to ask her to take one step with me before I click. And I'm going to click, and when you notice, I'm going to be now offering the treat behind the seam of my pants. We call it the heel position, and this I guess you could call a pre-heel exercise, but we want the dog to walk behind us Well, if I would like to walk the dog to walk behind me, I would like to deliver the treat behind me, so I'm reinforcing the dog walking in this position. At first, when you're getting the dog come to you, you saw I was holding the treat out. You can hold the treat out wherever you want. That doesn't matter because we're shaping the behavior. Now we're asking for more criteria. So let's go ahead and see how we do here. That's not right behind my seam, was it? Now I can wait for a little eye contact. As she disengaged, I gave her a different treat, threw her off a little bit, and she can keep on walking. Wait for her to re-engage. And you see that little jump there. If your dog's jumping, make sure you hold the treat a little lower. She disengaged, I keep on walking. I swear I've not practiced with her. So we just got done doing this for, I don't know, when we're about 2 or 3 minutes in. She was walking at a heel right there. Now again, that's not what we want your dog to do. We want your dog to walk within a leash, or an arm's reach of you. But conditioning your dog and rewarding them at first for 1 step in my heel position, then 2, then 3, then 4, that's a great thing to do. After a while, your puppy gets into a habit of doing it. When they go on a walk, they just kind of naturally hear it. And every once in a while, they'll squirt up there and sniff this and sniff that. That's okay. Now, if your dog gets the end of the leash, well, a lot of times I would like to use a positive interrupter. So I like using a kissing sign as my positive interrupter. So let's say I'm walking, she goes ahead of me, she hits the end of the leash, I go, she comes back to me, and I'm holding a treat right here, and I can lure her back into position. Now for my dogs, I have actually a cue that I want, a hand signal that I want to them to actually do for a heel. To my dogs, this means to heel. The reason for it, and I'll show you with Ruby here. So I'm getting her to walk towards me, do a U-turn, and then come here. Eventually, I like to have my dogs go into a sitting position. Let's try that again. And then you're delivering again behind the seam. So this is a nice big signal that if you're in a park and you go like this, your dog's like, oh, run over there and sit down next to David and I get a treat? Sure, I'm happy to do that. And eventually you get your dog walking next to you and you can recall your dog comes and sits next to you and your dog's like, your neighbor's like, oh my God, your dog is amazing. You're like, of course, we took Doggone Problems Puppy School. They taught us how to teach our dog to walk on the right side or left side. All right, Ruby, come here, sweetheart, let's do one more. This cutie is Ruby, and this is a video on how you can teach your dog to start walking with you nicely on your right or left side. Quest, you are a goofball.